The automatic doors of Crestfall Trust, Branch 7 slid open with a hiss, releasing a blast of cool, lemon-scented air into the already buzzing morning of downtown Atlanta. Outside, the Georgia sun beat down hard on the pavement, bouncing off car hoods and glass towers like a heatwave made of fire and judgment. Inside, marble floors gleamed like frozen lakes beneath the polished shoes of power-suited bankers. Phones rang, pens scratched. Security cameras blinked silently overhead. And then she walked in. Talia Greene, 14, hair braided tight, backpack slung over one shoulder, in her hand, a navy blue folder creased slightly from the pressure of her grip. Inside, a $5,000 scholarship check, crisp and proud. It was the result of nights spent hunched over textbooks, weekends trading parties for science fairs, and a lifetime of proving she belonged in any room, on merit alone. But the moment her sneakers hit the marble, the air changed. Behind the counter, a woman in heels, sharper than her smile, looked up. Her eyes narrowed, her lips curled. Talia didn't know her name yet. She would. Soon, with every step toward the teller, the tension in the room thickened, like static before a lightning strike. She had no idea that what awaited her wasn't a simple transaction, but a silent verdict. Not because of the check, not because of a mistake, but because of who she was, and what some people saw when they looked at her. She thought this was a bank. She didn't know it was about to become a battlefield, and in less than 5 minutes, her presence would spark a reckoning no one in that marble temple of money saw coming. The bank lobby pulsed with quiet affluence. Soft jazz spilled from hidden speakers, blending with the rhythmic click of heels on marble and the low murmur of morning transactions. Crestfall Trust wasn't just a bank. It was a monument to control, where wealth whispered and eyes spoke louder than words. Talia Greene stepped in like she didn't belong. 14, sharp-eyed, blazer-pressed, her frame barely tall enough to meet the counter's edge. In one hand, a scholarship check worth $5,000. In the other, the quiet determination of someone who knew the value of every dollar it represented. She approached the teller. Bryce Wilson, early 30s, close-cropped hair and a starched white shirt, too tight at the collar, barely looked up. His fingers stopped mid-keystroke. His eyes flicked from the check to her face. Blinked, paused, judged. Talia offered a small, practiced smile. "Good morning. I'd like to deposit this." Bryce took the check like it might bite, held it up to the light, squinted. His brow furrowed, suspicion etched across his expression like someone flipping through a mental rulebook. He didn't speak. Not yet. Behind him, the glass office door creaked open. Diane Masters emerged, a portrait of power in a tailored ivory pantsuit and stiletto heels. Her lipstick perfect, her eyes sharper than the jewelry on her wrist. She scanned the floor like a queen surveying her kingdom. And then she saw Talia. Something in her face shifted. The kind of shift you'd miss unless you were looking, a fraction too long of a stare, a twitch of disapproval behind the smile. "Bryce," she called, voice tight, professional, cold. He turned. "Yes, Ms. Masters?" She nodded toward the check. "How much?" $5,000. A pause, long enough for people nearby to turn their heads. "For a student?" Diane said, voice loud enough to echo off the marble. Talia's cheeks burned, but she stood tall. "It's my academic scholarship. I have the documentation." She slid her school ID and award letter across the counter, hands steady despite the tremble in her chest. Diane didn't look at them. She looked at Talia. "I'll need to verify everything," she said. Her tone wasn't skeptical, it was accusatory. And just like that, the air in the room changed. She wasn't a customer, she was a question mark. A threat, a problem to be managed. The moment Diane Masters turned her back, it was as if a silent decree had been issued. Talia Greene no longer mattered. Bryce set the check down like it was radioactive. He didn't return her ID or her letter. Instead, he tapped something into the computer with slow, deliberate keystrokes, his gaze flicking nervously toward the glass office where Diane disappeared again. Talia stood still, alone. The lobby hummed on without her. A toddler laughed somewhere near the loan officer desks. Coins clinked into a change sorter. But for her, everything moved in slow motion. Each second stretched longer than the last. Then the security guard came. 6'2", barrel-chested, sunglasses still on indoors. His badge caught the light as he stepped beside her, speaking without emotion. "Miss, I'm going to need you to step to the side while we verify the transaction." "I haven't done anything wrong," she said, voice small but firm. "Just procedure," he replied, already motioning toward a spot near the tall potted plant by the waiting chairs, a place tucked between a brochure stand and the cold expanse of floor-to-ceiling windows. Public, exposed, but isolated. Talia's sneakers squeaked against the floor as she was ushered away. Her fingers clenched around the empty folder. She could feel the stares on her back, some curious, others pitying, and a few downright judgmental. One woman whispered to her husband. A suited man raised an eyebrow and muttered something under his breath. She was no longer a student with a scholarship. She was a spectacle. "Can I use the phone?" she asked, suddenly remembering her own was locked in her school locker. The security guard didn't look at her. "Can't allow that. Wait here." Wait. That word hit harder than it should have. Talia stood there, spine straight, heart pounding. The air felt thinner by the windows, like she was breathing through gauze. She glanced at the wall clock. 9:02 a.m. Her mother would expect her home by 9:30. The plan had been simple. In, deposit. Outside now, even that felt naive. From across the lobby, she saw Bryce and Diane speaking in low voices. They weren't looking at the computer. They were looking at her. Whispers floated like fog around her. "She doesn't look old enough. Must be a mistake. Why's security watching her?" Talia's hands shook, but she didn't cry. She remembered what her mother always said. Grace under pressure isn't weakness, it's strategy. So she stood still, silent, and watched, because something deeper was happening here. Something bigger than just a check. From her corner by the window, Talia's eyes followed every movement in the room. Every gesture, every glance, every shift in energy. She wasn't just watching, she was studying. Because that's what she had been taught to do. Camille Greene, her mother, had grown up in East Detroit, where cracked sidewalks and empty fridge shelves were more common than clean water or second chances. Camille had clawed her way from food stamps to Fortune 500, one spreadsheet and sleepless night at a time. When she finally built Greene Financial Group, now one of the most respected firms in the country, she didn't forget where she came from. She made sure her daughter didn't either. Talia wasn't raised to flaunt money. She was raised to respect it. Her house wasn't filled with designer bags or marble countertops. It was filled with books, lessons, and rules. One rule above all: earn it. She had. Every bit of that $5,000 check was hers. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "You don't get to demand respect, baby. You earn it, and then you protect it." Talia had always understood the earning part. She wasn't prepared for how quickly others could try to take it away. She glanced back toward the teller. Bryce was avoiding eye contact now, typing with one hand, holding the check with the other like it might stain his fingers. Diane was nowhere to be seen. Talia's mind wandered, just for a moment, to that morning. She had sat at the kitchen table, toast untouched, check tucked inside her folder like a sacred token. Her mother had looked up from a laptop full of balance sheets and market trends. "You sure you don't want me to come with you?" Camille had asked, voice calm but knowing. Talia had smiled. "I've got this." And she had believed it, until now. The room around her continued like nothing was wrong. Clients in tailored suits were offered coffee. A banker chuckled politely at a client's joke. Somewhere in the distance, a printer hummed. All while she stood frozen, as if her presence alone required approval. She realized something then. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a test, not of the check, not of the system, but of her. Would she shrink? Would she fold? Or would she remember who raised her? What she'd worked for? Talia straightened her back. She didn't know what would happen next, but she was done waiting to be seen. Talia's patience, already thinning, shattered the moment Diane Masters returned. The manager swept back into the lobby, heels striking the marble like warning shots. Her expression was tight, her lips pressed into a line that feigned control. But there was tension behind her eyes. Something deeper, calculated. She didn't approach Talia. She didn't return her documents. Instead, she made a beeline toward the customer service desk, where a white couple had just entered. Mid-30s, business casual, holding paperwork identical to Talia's. Diane's demeanor shifted, like a mask being swapped. "Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Langston, right this way," she chirped, her voice suddenly light, inviting. "Let's get this taken care of quickly for you." Talia watched, her jaw clenched as the couple was ushered into a side office with coffee offered and doors closed gently behind them. No ID checks, no scrutiny, just warmth. Seconds later, a young black man, mid-20s, dreadlocks neatly pulled back, a briefcase in hand, stepped up to Bryce's counter. Before he could say a word, Diane intercepted him. "System's running slow right now," she said without looking him in the eye. "Might want to come back later." The man blinked, confused. "I just need to—" "It'll take a while," she cut in, voice clipped. "We're prioritizing scheduled appointments." He stared for a beat, then quietly turned and walked out. Talia felt something break inside her. This wasn't about slow systems or verification procedures, it was about control. Who was welcome, who wasn't, and who got to decide. Her fingers curled around the strap of her backpack. She'd been documenting every moment in the small leather notebook tucked inside. Her mother's gift from the day she got her scholarship. "For your future," Camille had said. Now it felt more like armor. Then something else caught her attention. A man had entered. Tall, late 50s, silver temples, tailored suit so sharp it looked ironed by sunlight. He walked with quiet authority. Talia didn't recognize him until she did. Harrison Wells, the CEO of Stonebank Capital, a name her mother had mentioned more than once in late-night phone calls. A rival, a man with a reputation for playing dirty behind boardroom doors. Wells didn't approach the teller. He went straight to Diane. They spoke in low tones. She handed him a manila folder marked "Confidential." His smile was thin. Her eyes darted toward Talia just once. And in that instant, Talia knew. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was strategic. She wasn't the threat. She was the witness. And someone wanted her out of the picture. Talia's breath hitched as Harrison Wells walked past her, a blur of polished leather and whispered danger. He didn't even glance in her direction because people like him never did. Not unless you were leverage or a threat. She watched as he exited the building, the confidential folder tucked neatly under his arm like a stolen secret. Diane Masters returned to her glass office, her heels clicking with a new confidence, as if some unspoken deal had been sealed. She paused at the threshold, looked directly at Talia, and smirked. That was the moment everything snapped. Talia stepped forward, not out of impulse, but conviction. She walked across the lobby, past stunned faces and hushed murmurs, until she stood once again at Bryce's counter. "I'd like my documents back," she said, voice unwavering. Bryce blinked, startled. I'm not sure if— "I earned that scholarship. I brought the paperwork. I've waited over an hour. Now I want my check, my ID, and my award letter. You've had long enough." The room went still, eyes turned. Even the security guard shifted uneasily. Diane's voice cut through the tension like a razor. "You're out of line, young lady." Talia turned toward her, slowly, calmly. "I'm not out of line, I'm just not in the corner anymore." Diane's expression cracked, just slightly. "This is bank protocol. You're being unreasonable." "No," Talia said, "you're being discriminatory. You've denied me service. You've shown bias. And now you've handed a folder full of confidential information to a man who competes with my mother's firm." Gasps echoed in the lobby. Diane froze. Talia reached into her backpack and pulled out the leather notebook. She flipped it open, reading with clarity and composure. 9:17 a.m. Diane Masters addresses white couple with award letter, escorts them to VIP office. No delay. 9:22 a.m. Black customer with briefcase turned away with excuse of system delays. 9:29 a.m. Harrison Wells receives folder marked "Confidential." Subject unknown. Witnessed by 3 employees. Diane's face drained of color. Bryce slowly stepped back from the counter. Talia kept her voice steady. "I don't know what's in that folder, but I know what I saw, and I wrote it all down." Silence. Then, the doors opened. A tall woman in a slate-grey blazer stepped through like a storm wrapped in silk. Camille Greene, eyes sharp, posture regal, rage held in check by discipline. She looked at her daughter first, then at Diane. "Is there a reason?" Camille said, voice cool as steel. "My child was treated like a criminal in a bank I now own." And just like that, the reckoning began. A sudden hush rippled through the bank like the drop before an earthquake. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the slow, deliberate footsteps of Camille Greene crossing the marble floor. All eyes followed her. Camille didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Power radiated from her like heat from a furnace, controlled, focused, undeniable. "Miss Masters," she said, stopping just feet from Diane, "would you care to explain why my daughter was removed from the service line, denied access to her own documents, and watched by security for over an hour?" Diane opened her mouth, just once, but nothing came out. Camille turned to the room, voice calm but ringing with authority. "This bank was acquired by Greene Financial Group 11 days ago. All employees were notified. Yet today, a minor with valid credentials was publicly humiliated, while confidential materials were passed, unsanctioned, to a known corporate rival. I'd like to know why." No one answered. Talia stood beside her mother, notebook still clutched in hand. Camille gently took it, flipping through the notes. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. "Effective immediately," Camille said, her tone final. "Diane Masters is relieved of duty. Security, please escort her from the premises." Diane blinked. "You can't." "I already have." Two guards stepped forward. The same man who had watched Talia like a threat now shifted his attention to Diane, his stance unflinching. As Diane was led away, the silence in the room cracked. Employees looked at one another, customers murmured in disbelief. But Camille wasn't finished. She faced the room. "This institution will undergo an internal review. Every manager, every teller, every policy. Because if my daughter hadn't documented this, if she hadn't had the clarity to stand up while being belittled, we'd still be pretending nothing happened." She turned back to Talia, her voice softening. "You were right to speak, right to stand, and I'm proud of you." Talia swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't cry. She nodded. Behind them, Bryce quietly returned the check and paperwork. His hands shook. "Sorry," he murmured. Talia took her things without a word. As mother and daughter walked out together, the room parted in silence, not just for the CEO, but for the girl who refused to disappear, and for the truth she refused to bury. Because justice, when earned and demanded with grace, doesn't knock quietly. It walks through the front door and changes everything. In the days that followed, the story of what happened inside Crestfall Trust traveled far beyond the marble walls of that downtown Atlanta branch. It wasn't just gossip, it was a reckoning. Local news stations aired snippets of cell phone footage taken by witnesses. A few customers had quietly recorded pieces of the confrontation. Camille Greene's calm takedown, Talia's poised testimony, Diane Masters' escorted exit. On social media, hashtags like #TALIASPEAKS and #BANKING WHILEBLACK trended within hours. But for Talia Greene, the aftermath wasn't about attention. It was about clarity. She had walked into that bank as a teenager, proud of her scholarship, excited, nervous, and ready to take one more step into the world of adulthood. What she didn't expect was to come face to face with a truth so raw it left a scar she would carry forever. That the world still judged people not by their merit, but by their skin, their age, their silence. But she hadn't stayed silent. She hadn't let fear win. That's what her mother had taught her, through example more than words. Camille Greene hadn't just built a financial empire, she had built a code of values and passed it to her daughter like an heirloom. "Power," Camille once told her, "doesn't always look like a title. Sometimes it's a voice in a quiet room. Sometimes it's standing when no one else will." And that day in the bank, Talia became more than just a student or a daughter. She became a witness, a force, a reminder that character is built not in ease, but in confrontation. Crestfall Trust underwent a full internal investigation. Diane's actions were only the beginning. A pattern of implicit bias, discriminatory practices, and corporate negligence came to light. Several executives quietly resigned. The bank implemented mandatory diversity and ethics training, with oversight by Camille's firm. And something else changed. Talia was invited to speak at her school, and then at 3 others. Students listened as she shared her story, not with bitterness, but with purpose. She talked about accountability, about documentation, about grace under fire. She talked about what it meant to be judged before you're heard, and what it means to speak anyway. What had started as a quiet moment at a bank became the spark that lit up a broader conversation about equity, dignity, and courage in the face of institutional injustice. And through it all, Talia never let herself forget what it had felt like to stand alone by that window, holding a folder and a dream as the world tried to turn its back. That memory didn't crush her, it sharpened her. Because here's the truth, sometimes the most important battles are the ones we never planned to fight. Not with fists, but with facts. Not with rage, but with resolve. Injustice doesn't always come screaming. Sometimes it walks in wearing a suit and smiling behind a desk. But justice, real justice, it's earned one choice at a time, by refusing to bow, by standing firm, and by daring to speak the truth when it's hardest. Talia Greene didn't just deposit a check that day, she deposited courage into the heart of a system that had forgotten how to listen. And that, more than money, is the kind of wealth the world needs more of. If this story moved you, if Talia's quiet courage and Camille's unwavering strength reminded you that silence is never the answer to injustice, then don't just scroll past. This isn't just a story about a bank, it's about the battles we all face when no one's watching. At X Daily Stories, we bring you real, raw, and powerful narratives that reveal hidden truths and celebrate voices that won't be silenced. So hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and share this story with someone who needs to remember, grace isn't weakness, and truth doesn't need permission. We've got more twists, more reckonings, and more heroes waiting to rise. Join the movement, because the next story could be yours.